A couple weeks ago, we met with Dr. Chapman from the health department, and to make sure that as a school district, we're doing everything that we need to do at this time. As you know, we've put a lot of measures in place over the course of the last 2 weeks. This past weekend, we did have another development. As you know, we reached out to schools and made sure that we communicated with our teachers, our staff, and our administrators, as well as board members. And I thought as information continues to come out, because a lot of this is so fluid, I thought it best to have Dr. Chapman come forward and share information with the school board. Then we'll follow that with Ms. Schroeder, who will share some information as well. So if you'd allow us, I'd like Dr. Chapman to come forward.
Before she comes up, just as a matter of housekeeping, we do have public hearing at 6:15, but because of the importance of this, if it goes over that time, then we'll do the public hearing as soon as this presentation is over.
So I appreciate it, sir.
Let's see. I'll use your hand sanitizer after touching all of this. Okay.
Welcome, Dr. Chapman.
All right. Will I see the slides straight ahead? So I just need to click it. Okay. Thank you so much for inviting me here today. And as Mr. Chambers said, this is very fluid. It's rapidly evolving, and things can change day to day with this coronavirus. So I'm going to talk about novel coronavirus 2019. And I was asked a question by my husband the other night. What does novel mean? Why do you say that? Well, novel means that this is the first time this virus has been seen in human beings. So this virus existed somewhere in the animal kingdom, and we're probably thinking China. It made the jump from humans to, from whatever species they finally decided it was, to humans. So the novel means it's the first time human beings have seen the virus. Oops. Okay. Okay, so on March 1st, the Florida Department of Health reported Florida's first 2 cases of COVID-19 in both Hillsborough and Manatee County residents. As a result, the governor issued Executive Order 2051 directing a public health emergency and establishing the Florida response protocol. And the state Surgeon General issued a declaration of public health emergency for the state of Florida. Under Florida statute, the Florida Department of Health is the lead agency at the state level in the response mode, and we're their surrogates here at the local level. So as of this point in time, and this is from the CDC website, there are 5 countries, 4 widespread transmission in which there are restrictions on entry into the U.S. from those countries. And that includes China, where this started, Iran, South Korea, and Italy. There is also sustained community transmission, or what we call level 2, in Japan. I'm just going to hold this. All right, this is today's most recent guidance from Florida. Okay, so ours is slightly different than CDC. We're casting a little, so we're following CDC guidance, but we're casting a wide net. For returning travelers, and I know this is important because we're coming up on spring break, this is the advice and the advisory right now. It may not be the advisory at the end of spring break. All right, so again, fluid and changing. So right now, countries who are level 3, so China, South Korea, Italy, and Iran, we are asking everyone returning from those countries to do a mandatory 14-day home self-isolation and monitor their health. If they develop respiratory symptoms, they should contact their healthcare provider or a county health department if they don't have a healthcare provider. This next one happened because of this weekend. Countries with level 2 and cruises. I know a lot of people are possibly going on cruises during spring break. In this situation, we are going to ask them to monitor their health and limit interactions with others for 14 days. And that we'll talk a little bit later about some social distancing measures that we'll probably recommend for those during that 14-day period. Again, if they develop respiratory symptoms, they should immediately self-isolate and contact their healthcare provider or the health department. So DOH's highest priority right now is to try to control the spread of COVID-19. As of today, the most vulnerable individuals in our community are those who are elderly, especially those with comorbid health conditions. So cardiovascular disease, diabetes, lung disease, obesity. This is the highest risk. You notice I didn't say children. In a study out of China of 44,000 hospitalized patients, so this wasn't even those who weren't hospitalized, but out of 44,000, only 880 were children. That is anyone less than 20. So it's about 2% of that population. They generally have had much milder symptoms. There were some children who had serious complications, but there were no deaths to children in China under 10 in that cohort. So as I hearken back to the pandemic of 2009, 2010, H1N1, it was exactly the opposite. Children were highly impacted in that pandemic, and the elderly were relatively spared. Generally during seasonal influenza period, it is the elderly and children. And in fact, already this flu season in Florida, 9 children have died from influenza. 7 perfectly healthy kids, they just didn't get a flu shot. So I'd like to just try and put that in a little bit of perspective. As of today, the actions taken to protect the most vulnerable individuals are that I've advised all hospitals, nursing homes, and ALFs to actively screen visitors and staff for any international travel and respiratory illness and exclude them from entry or work. I've also advised all healthcare providers to actively screen patients for international travel and respiratory illness and provide for sick and well waiting rooms. This is advice also from the department. And fully evaluate for all respiratory pathogens. This is not something we usually do during cold and flu season, including COVID-19. Because right now we have a lot of the cold viruses circulating. And the early presentation can be similar. In fact, there are types of coronaviruses that cause the common cold, as well as respiratory syncytial virus, parainfluenza virus, and others. So our highest priority in our community right now are these really high-risk individuals. High-risk individuals living in the community, we'll talk a little bit more later about telling them some things they could do to protect themselves. But right now, that is the advice given today. In Florida, we have 12 cases diagnosed in 8 counties. There's 3 in Broward, there's 2 in Manatee, 2 in Lee, and 1 each in Charlotte, Hillsborough, Santa Rosa, Okaloosa, and Volusia. There have been 2 deaths. The age range is from 29 to 81 years. The 29-year-old had come back from a trip in Italy. 8 had known international travel, and 4 had no international travel, and those were in Broward and Manatee. So in total, though, there are 18 Florida cases, and that includes 5 people who were diagnosed and isolated in another state. It also includes people who might have been repatriated from the cruise ships like the Diamond Princess. Those people, when they're returned back to their home, have been cleared medically by the CDC. There is one non-Florida resident who unfortunately got diagnosed here and has to stay here until they complete their recovery. So far, we have tested we have 115 COVID-19 tests pending at one of our 3 state labs. And so far, 140 people have had negative tests that we have tested. Currently, there are 302 people who are being monitored statewide for either COVID-19 exposure, or they might be an actual COVID-19 person who is actually not hospitalized. And many people with COVID-19 do not require hospitalization and can stay at home and successfully recover. We have already monitored 802 people, and they have all cleared their monitoring and are no longer being monitored. So, transmission and symptoms. This is a disease just like influenza and the common cold that is transferred through respiratory droplets with an infected person who coughs and sneezes. It is spread among close contact, i.e. within about 6 feet. So the droplets can spray in approximately a 6-foot range. Symptoms, we are still evolving on the symptoms. But the hallmark symptoms are fever, although not all people have a fever, cough, and difficulty breathing. Some people have GI distress along with it. So this is a new virus. So how it manifests in human beings is still evolving for us. But clearly we can focus in on fever, cough, sneezing, difficulty breathing. Okay, prevention. We have no treatment and we have no vaccine, while there are studies ongoing to look at certain medicines, and there is the beginning work of a vaccine. A vaccine is a ways off. Optimistically, some people say a year. It could be 2 years. So what do we have available to us? We have something that we've labeled with a kind of a fancy name, but once you start seeing it, you'll know it's what your mother told you to do all the time. It's called non-pharmaceutical interventions. There are personal NPIs, there are environmental NPIs, and then there are community NPIs. And so, for COVID-19, just like you would for any other infectious respiratory disease, there are some following precautions that we should all be practicing. Stay home when you're sick with respiratory symptoms and you're coughing and sneezing and hacking. People go to work all the time when they're sick. There was a gentleman who was on the Diamond Princess who wrote a column, and he said, "I have coronavirus, it's not so bad." It was a very interesting dialogue about his experience. And he said his initial symptoms, if he had had them at home, he would have gone to work. So I implore people, stay home when you're sick. Please don't share your germs with everybody. And I'm talking about influenza and parainfluenza and other coronavirus and respiratory syncytial virus. Keep your viruses at home. For those of us who are well, avoid contact with sick people. Someone's been coughing and hacking and sneezing. Don't shake their hand. In fact, about a week ago, I said, no more handshaking. There's other ways to greet each other. It's really important to get adequate sleep and eat well-balanced meals. and having some sort of normal rhythm to your life. And for me, the normal rhythm of life for kids is school. And for many kids, it's a place where they get food every day. Wash your hands often with soap and water, 20 seconds or longer. I'm not sure if there are any children in the audience, but they might know, what song do you sing that to allow for 20 seconds?
Happy
You can
birthday.
call out from behind me.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday. Wash your hands. I knew one of the kids would know. Happy birthday. Sing happy birthday to yourself. I suggest as adults you might want to do that to yourself silently. But I encourage kids to belt it out. And wash your hands. You can use hand sanitizer that has at least 60% alcohol. But I please advise that hand sanitizer does not clean. It disinfects. So dirty hands need to be cleaned, need to be washed with soap and water. And even with hand sanitizer, after about 5 times of using hand sanitizer, you should wash your hands. So I know people have made huge runs on hand sanitizer and you cannot find it anywhere. But it's really cheap to wash your hands and do it often. And so I really encourage that. Dry your hands with a clean towel. And use your elbow or the towel, especially in public places, to turn off the faucet and open the doors. All right. Now here's one that is easy to say and is incredibly difficult to do. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, or mouth with unwashed hands or after you've been touching surfaces. It's been all over the news this past weekend. How many times do you think people touch their face in an hour? 20 times an hour. As I said at the county commission, start thinking about your hands, because if you think about what's up on this screen, a lot of it is in your hands. It's in your own power to protect your health. And so I advise the county commission, if you start seeing your hand come into your face, slap it. No, get away. For goodness sakes, cover your mouth and your nose with a tissue or sneeze into your sleeve or cough. And if you use a tissue, throw it away and go wash your hands. In our homes when we're sick, clean and disinfect high-touch surfaces often. Cleaning and disinfecting high-touch surfaces during cold and flu season is also recommended in workplaces and schools, and you do that on a routine basis anyway. And again, remember, this is for any kind of respiratory illness. Call the doctor before visiting, because more than likely, they're going to want you to put a mask on. Now, masks are for sick people, not well people. All right? Masks are for healthcare providers, not well non-healthcare providers. And so call, and they may ask you to come to a special entrance, or they may ask you to sit in a certain waiting room. They may ask you to put a mask on and clean your hands with hand sanitizer. So now we move into sort of the social distancing practices. And these are more a little bit focused on personal social distancing, but it's sort of this is sort of some of the things we talk about when we talk about limited interaction with people. So remember I said to you that right now, as of today, the advice is that people who went to Japan or come home from any cruise ship, that they limit their interactions. So definitely for that group, I would avoid shaking hands as a social greeting. I would keep 6 feet of distance between myself and others. If I was one of those people coming back and I was in a workplace, I would be trying to sanitize my work surfaces and areas that I touch. This isn't really too hard for us here. We don't have a lot of public transit. but avoid public transit if possible. So this would apply if children are going on cruises. They should probably not ride the bus for those 14 days. I guess it would actually be 10 school days after they come back from spring break. Those, the social distancing recommendations for those who need to limit transmission upon return from cruise is to really avoid crowded places. And I'm talking sporting events, church, community festivals, concerts, that type of thing. Now, outdoors isn't nearly as bad. It's really kind of indoors, but still, for 14 days, try to limit your interaction. These are social distancing practices that we may have to recommend to the general public in the coming future. But for the people who will be coming back from cruises after spring break, these are some of the things we would recommend. So, while we can't change the daily schedule of the children who are coming back from cruises, what we can say to their parents is, you know, you can change your daily habits. Yeah, you can go to the grocery store, but go at non-peak times. Or take advantage of all the door-to-door service. Walmart, all the fast food places deliver. Take advantage of that. If you're coming back from a cruise or Japan this spring break, work with your employer. Maybe you have a job where they can allow you to telework for that 14 days so you don't have to take sick leave or whatever. And really don't go to any large meetings or conferences if you're coming back from this spring break from a cruise. And so that would be for the parents who are coming back from a cruise. We would recommend that they not travel on airplanes for business during that 14-day period. Okay, I'm not going to go into a huge amount of detail on public health contact tracing, but I need to tell you that getting a positive case is just the beginning of our job, not the end of our job. So contact tracing, once we identify someone who has a disease of concern, in this case we're talking about COVID-19, we make sure that they're isolated. Home isolation is generally there's very few that aren't home isolated. We then go and ask that patient to remember, okay, from the time you had symptoms to when we knew you had this, what did you do and who did you do it with and who are those people? And then it's our job to contact all of those people and review whether or not they're asymptomatic or if they have symptoms, and then take further steps from there to evaluate them medically if they do have symptoms. All of those people, in the case of COVID-19, have been asked to self-isolate at home. Now, people might be thinking as you hear this, as the people behind me hear this, as the people listening hear this, you know, how do you do this, Dr. Chapman? How do you make them stay home? Well, it has been my experience after 34 years of doing this job is that the vast majority of people are highly cooperative and will voluntarily do this. But if they don't, then we make them sign, and in this case, quarantine is for people who are well, and isolation is for people who are sick in the world of public health. So we would take them a voluntary quarantine agreement and say, okay, we're going to give you one more chance. You can sign this legal agreement, and in it says, if you break this, then we'll go to court and get a judge to tell them, you will stay at home. They will be put under court order. We do this all the time for other diseases. For patients who are not cooperative with tuberculosis. It's a public health tool that we have. So that is what we do. We do contact tracing and trying to track down the disease and limit its spread. Okay, there are lots of websites. The Florida Department of Health, this is a little bit of a dated slide. This interface has changed quite a bit, but the URL has not. Florida Department of Health, the CDC. But what I'm going to point out to you and to the parents in this audience is when Mr. Chambers and Mr. Horton and Ms. Schroeder, when we all met on Tuesday 2 weeks ago, you know, I said to Mr. Chambers, I said, you have a reach to people that I could only wish I had. That a press release from me won't do as much for our community as getting stuff up on your website to help parents. And so I bombarded them with all kinds of resources and said, you know, whatever you can do. Because, you know, you are a critical partner in this response. And so that was Tuesday night. By Thursday night, February 27th, I was informed by my staff, we're getting a call down from the school district about what they're doing with coronavirus and pushing us to this website. Well, I immediately went there, and I was amazed, just amazed. I was really, I mean, how quickly they pulled it together, how they edited, you know, sort of kind of figured out what were the best things to put up there. I was immediately telling the county to link to the Okaloosa County School District. And, you know, your leadership here, Mr. Chambers and his staff, moved rapidly. Moved very, very rapidly. In fact, I sent the web link up to what is called ESF 8 Planning. So that's in the Emergency Operations Center, and Health and Medical is over it. And they looked at it and said, we're forwarding this to DOE. This is a best practice. I know that your leadership of this organization, Mr. Chambers and his staff, are way ahead of the curve on this. And I commend them for getting way ahead of the curve. When those first cases were announced in Hillsborough and Manatee, those school districts weren't ready. When our first case was announced, our school district was ready. And so I'm really proud of that. You should be proud as board members, and our community should be proud of our school district for really getting out ahead of this a couple of weeks ago. So, all media inquiries, we are referring to my PIO, and we will handle it from there. We opened a public information line, 850-344-0566, last Friday. We are open Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 5 p.m., and you don't need to remember the DOH 24/7 public information line, because our information line rolls to that after hours and is available. You can email Healthy Okaloosa PIO if you have questions, or COVID-19 at floridahealth.gov 24/7. So we have that available. And I'd like to close with some words from a famous president who led this country during a period of great civil strife. And he talked about that we are not enemies, but friends. We must not be enemies, though our passion may have strained. And we are in a time where passions and anxiety will really strain us. But we cannot become enemies. We are partners. We need to continue to collaborate. It is really important for us to keep those bonds of those partnership relationships healthy and open. This isn't about blame. This isn't about, and you know, I worry for people who get this virus and then it gets known. And in fact, one lady came back to our county and wanted to tell her story. And she told us that she was glad that I said something to the public because she was kind of being socially isolated, even though she didn't have the virus. So I really ask people to be kind and for us to say friends and not enemies in this very stressful time that we're going through. And as Abraham Lincoln said, now is the time for the better angels of our nature to come forth.
Dr. Chapman, we appreciate you coming tonight, and I think, Mr. Chambers, you have some questions that you, or some,
No, I
not
think-
questions,
I
but.
think the only thing that I would say right now is, once again, we thank you. From 2 weeks ago when we reached out to you, that day you came forward. At night we've spoken, on the weekends we've spoken, and you've been there to offer your support, guidance, and that's very much appreciated. There hasn't been a time when we've reached out that she has not answered her personal cell phone, and we're just very thankful. Anything that you may have.
Just as the chairperson, I truly appreciate you coming on and doing this presentation. I think it was very much needed, and I think it was eloquent what you said and just straight to the point. So,
Okay, great.
All right.
All right.
Thank you, Dr. Chapman.
thank you, Dr.
Thank you. So now after I've touched all this stuff, it's been touched by lots of people. I'll get a little hand sanitizer.
So, Mr. McGinnis, I know Mr. Chambers has Terry Schroeder to speak on behalf of this, but I just want to make sure, as far as approving the agenda, do you want me to wait after that and then go into public hearing?
Probably go ahead and get the agenda approved.
Okay, all right. So with that being said, we'll go to item 2, approval of agenda 2.1, changes to the agenda and approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Motion by Mr.
Second.
Second, Dr. White. Any discussion? Hearing none, let's vote. Okay, so with that being said, we'll move all the way down to public hearing number 17.1. And that's public hearing for the adoption of revised job description for mental health counselor presented by Dr. Lee Hale, Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources, and recommended by the Superintendent for approval. Is there anybody in the general public that would like to speak on behalf of this? Okay, hearing none, I need a motion to adopt this job description.
Move it.
Dr. White,
Second.
Mr. Destin, second. Any discussion, board members? Hearing none, let's vote. Motion carries 5-0. 17.2 is public hearing for adoption of revised job description for social worker. Again, this is presented by Dr. Lee Hale, Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources, and recommended by the Superintendent for approval. Is there anybody in the general public that would like to speak on behalf of this? Okay, hearing none, I need a motion to adopt.
Move we approve.
I'll second it.
Second by Ms. Vanchek. Any discussion? Hearing none, let's vote. And the motion carries 5-0. And I did kind of go I forgot to adjourn, so, but that, okay. So we now are back into Mr. Chambers' business, so if you want Ms. Schroeder to come up.
Thank you. Ms. Schroeder?
Good evening. It's hard to follow Dr. Chapman and her presentation. I think it pretty much sums up everything that we've been talking about for the last 2 weeks. We've been living in coronavirus world. But I just wanted to update you. I know that we talked on Thursday about the things that we had put into place at that time. I did just want to share with you a few things that have come up since that time on Thursday. And again, this is always it's almost like a moving target, what we're trying to hit, because as Dr. Chapman mentioned, the guidance changes. Even today, the guidance changed a couple of times. I mean, we talked this morning, and then the guidance changed by the afternoon. So it is very fluid, and like she mentioned, what is the guidance today will probably be different when we are coming back from spring break. So we'll just have to monitor that very closely. So we did have that confirmed case in Okaloosa County this weekend, and of course we all know that one of our local private schools closed for the next 2 weeks. That kind of set a domino effect in play for us, and Mr. Chambers and Mr. Horton and Ms. Lightbourne and I were all on the phone this weekend trying to decide how we're going to move forward and what we are going to do as a district. And again, with Dr. Chapman's direction and her guidance, we decided that at that point, or Mr. Chambers decided, that we, as Dr. Chapman mentioned, needed to keep things as normal as possible for our students. And so because the risk was still low for our population and our community, Mr. Chambers decided that that's what we're going to do, is provide that normal environment for our students and staff this week. So we did a call out to parents yesterday evening. You probably received that call out, I would think, and just let everybody know, because word spreads fast in our community with social media and everything that was going on. So we, again, wanted to get ahead of it and let our students and staff know that we will be in school this week, and we'll be doing things as we have been doing the last 2 weeks with our diligence and all the things that she talked about, the hand washing, the respiratory etiquette, the cleaning of surfaces, and we have been doing that. I'm very proud of our schools, and I'm very proud of our staff for just really jumping in there and doing those things that we have asked them to do. Our custodial staff, our principals, they've really done a great job in that area. Our leadership has established a coronavirus hotline. That hotline will go live tomorrow for the Okaloosa County School District. I want to be really clear, though, about that hotline. As far as medical questions and health-related questions, when you call that line, we will refer you to the hotline that Dr. Chapman mentioned in her presentation, and we will have that information at the beginning of the call. So before they even get an answer, they're going to be referred to that hotline from the Department of Health if it's a medical related question. We are not really the guidance providers for those kinds of questions, and so we want to refer them to those folks that can really give them the guidance that they need health related wise. Now, school related questions, we'll be happy to answer those, and those will be provided, answers to those questions will be provided at that hotline. And that will be open during regular duty day for those parents and community members if they would like to call. Mr. Chambers did send out an email this morning to all of our school district staff and to the board members as well, a question and answer type of format to alleviate some of those frequently or commonly asked questions that we've been getting here lately, and I think that was very helpful for our folks to really kind of get ahead of those questions that they may have. And so again, that went out to all of our staff and all of you all. Cleaning and sanitizing our facilities, we have the alcohol-based sanitizer, that 60% alcohol-based sanitizer in every classroom in every school now. Thanks to Dr. Smith and his magic, we have all of that out there, and so that is great. We are doing our best to keep soap and towels in bathrooms. Some of our schools it's more of a challenge because of behavior type situations, but I will tell you that our principals are on it. When that happens, they are making sure that those supplies still are placed in our bathrooms for our students to practice that good hand washing that we've asked them to do. Every bus has hand sanitizer on it, and all the bus seats are being wiped down. So those practices are in place, and they are being monitored, that our staff is following those. Field trips have been a pretty regular question for us, and right now there's no restricted travel in our state and really in the U.S. at all. So we are, again, like Dr. Chapman says, we're monitoring what's happening, and we will follow the CDC's guidelines. We will follow the Florida Department of Health guidelines as far as those field trips go, and keeping in mind that the health and safety of our students is our top priority. And so, again, what we're doing this week may change by the time we come back from spring break, but again, we will follow that and adjust as needed moving forward with the with the collaboration of Dr. Chapman and her team. And finally, sort of the baby for me of this whole project is our pandemic plan. It is out on our website, so it is public out there now. So if you really want to see, now keep in mind that document is also fluid. As far as guidance goes, if we find that there is something we need to change or update or do differently, we will certainly update that plan as we go along. But that document that's out there on our district website was put together by our pandemic preparedness team that, again, consisted of school district staff, but also community staff from the Department of Health, from the Okaloosa Emergency Management Services, Aviana Healthcare. So we have been collaborating with those folks in our community to help us update that plan and make sure that we are prepared for what's coming.
Thank you, Ms. Schroeder. Mr. Chambers?
And I'd just like to close this part with saying thank you. Thank you to Ms. Schroeder, Mr. Horton, Ms. Lightbourne, and our team as we've gone through this. A lot of late nights discussing this topic, but most importantly, I want to thank our teachers, our staff, and our administrators, because they're the ones who are most impacted with this at the school level. Appreciate the calls that have come in to give us a heads up in terms of, hey, here's a question, what's an answer? And I just want to thank you, the school board, because we've had conversations with many of you, and many of you have also asked questions which we've been able to get answered as well, and that's been a help as we've gotten out this information. So just once again, that teamwork is just appreciated, and just appreciate the work that our schools have done.
And thank you, Mr. Chambers. And for those of you that are in the public tonight, we do appreciate you being patient, but we felt like this was a very important topic that needed to be addressed ASAP. So again, thank you, Mr. Chambers, and thank you to the public that are here for other reasons. We appreciate your patience. So with that in mind, we're going to move down to recognitions. And Mr. Chambers, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you. All right, good evening. So once again, it's an honor, and it seems like every week we come up here and we're recognizing another state champion. I think that is absolutely fantastic. And if you've had the opportunity to see the Choctaw Indianette dance team live or on social media, this is a wonderful feat. This is a group that they can absolutely dance, they can move, and you guys are absolutely impressive. And I'd just like to say, when you look at the accolades, they attended the Florida Dance Championship, and they received the following honors. So they were first in the state in the small varsity pom division, first in the small varsity hip hop, second in the small varsity game day, and then they also won the overall crowd appeal award for hip hop. And that's something, obviously, that's pretty impressive. Then you look at what they did at the UDA Nationals dance competition. They were third place in the nation, so not in the state, but in the nation, in the small varsity game day, and the first high school in our county to earn a medal at UDA Nationals. So with that being said, just once again, like we shared one of the last board meetings, the work that these individuals put in each and every day to go to the actual championships and do what they do is one thing, but to put the work and the effort and the time is another thing, and that's what it's all about. It's putting in that preparation and work in order to achieve a championship, so we commend you for that. And we also would just like to say to Coach Ms. Shank, absolutely fantastic work and leadership, and we know that they would not be here without you. So without further ado, if you would come forward, Ms. Shank, and if you'd come forward, Ms. Heck. And practicing good hygiene stuff, we're going to do this right now. And we're going to call the ladies and gentlemen up in 1 second. But this is presented. Dr. White, if you could come up as well, please. Thank you, sir. And this is presented on behalf of myself and our school board. We extend warmest congratulations and highest esteem to the Choctawhatchee High School Indianettes dance team on their 2020 state championship, small varsity pom and small varsity hip hop. So absolutely congratulations, fantastic. So that is for you, the ladies and the gentlemen. Congratulations. So congratulations.
Mr. Chambers, can I just take 30 30 seconds?
Absolutely.
Okay, good. So I just need to piggyback on what you said and put a little more emphasis
Yes.
on the incredible awards that our team has accumulated this year, because it's not just a state title, it is actually a 3-time double state title.
Wow.
That's one thing. And then something that no high school in Okaloosa County has done is received a medal, earned a medal at nationals. And so they placed 3rd in their first time ever in this category and at nationals. So coming home with bronze medals is unbelievable. And we don't have it yet, but I'm already envisioning the flag that will hang in the gymnasium, because this is the first ever. And so I want to reiterate what you've said.
Absolutely.
3-time double state championship and bronze winners at national. I could not be more proud of them.
Fantastic,
Yeah.
fantastic.
Well, I mean, really just thank you to everybody, all the kids for working so hard. We have fantastic leadership. So we have one senior, and she's been an incredible leader for this team. It is a small team, but they are a very hardworking team and a very dedicated team. And I'm just extremely appreciative of them and all of their parents. And of course, Ms. Heck for always supporting us.
Fantastic. We're going to let you call out the names. And we will do the forearm shift.
All right, Valerie Nisimo. Zaya Sanders. Carlton Carter. Kiana Boyd. Vita Star Hollis. Tatiana Burr. Peyton Dowie. And Gabriella Lako Mitchell.
If you want to form,
You wanna hold this?
get people formed for a picture really quickly.
Sure.
All right. Do you want to come down, do your thing down here?
Come on now. Story of my life. That's what I was going to do. How he tells me.
Let's do one hold and then do bronze medal. Very good.
I don't think she's here, so I don't see her. And Spolsky would be here too. So. Okay, all right. Did you? Well, we did have another recognition, but doesn't look like Ms. Orcutt's here, so we'll plan on doing that at another time. So we'll go down. School board members will go down to 4. We have no visitors. 5, no administrative personnel appointments, and we're at number 6, public comment. And Mr. McInnes, if you would please go over the rules.
Yes, sir. If you're going to speak tonight to the board, you'll have 4 minutes to make your presentation.
Okay. And with that being said, when you do come, please approach the microphone, state your name, your address for public, so we'll have it on public record there. So first one is Miss Karen Osborne. Good evening.
Good evening. Mr. McGinnis, I do have one question. If my 4 minutes are interrupted by someone do I get to, do my minutes, does my time start?
We will try to
Resent-
keep up with your time as
Okay.
you're moving through.
Good evening, and thank you for allowing me this time to address the board. Again, my name is Karen Osborne, and I'm an employee of the Okaloosa County School District. If you'll allow me, I'd like to read my comments so that I can stay on track and finish within the time allowed. First, I'd like to say that as a governing board, I have the utmost respect for this school board. While I'm not able to attend most school board meetings due to after-school events, I do review every meeting agenda and watch every school board meeting online. I feel it's important, not only as an employee, but as a taxpayer, to know what's happening in our school district. I'm involved in many committees, both at my school and at the district level, and I do my best to keep up with what's happening in our district. I appreciate all the work that's done by this board, by our superintendent, and by his senior staff. As a public school employees, we're under constant public scrutiny. As teachers, we're commented on Facebook, Twitter, in the grocery store, the school parking lot when we're leaving work, and in my own school's media center by parents on Fridays. It's part of the job, and for some it's too much, and they choose to leave. Some choose not to become part of this profession at all. And for the rest of us, we've become used to it. We're public employees, and therefore, we're accountable to the public. This board has also provided the public with the ability to make public comments at each board meeting, as it should be. At the last school board meeting on February 24th, Mr. Eddie Perillo made a public comment about one of our employees. He had every right to make that comment. He is a citizen, and he's therefore entitled to his opinion. What I'm here to talk about tonight are the comments that were made by Ms. Ivanchek at that same meeting. While viewing that board meeting online, I was horrified to hear the comments that Ms. Ivanchek made concerning that same employee. First, I want to say that I'm not here because I'm a friend of that employee. She and I have attended some of the same meetings, but that's the extent of our interaction. I'm here because, for me, the comments that were made by Ms. Ivanchek were personal. Personal because of the entire time I watched that video, I kept thinking, that could be me. That could be one of my friends. I'm not here to discuss this employee's situation. I'm here because Ms. Ivanchek chose to use her position of authority at a public school meeting to embarrass one of our employees.
Okay.
She compared that
Ms.
employee.
Osborne, real quick, just, and I appreciate what you're saying, but we can, please direct
I'll
it to
direct
me
it to you.
without mentioning Ms.
Okay.
Ivanchek's name, please.
This employee was compared to a child. Her professionalism was questioned. If you hadn't stopped her, the superintendent was going to be put in a position of refusing to discuss a confidential personnel issue publicly. Whether the motives were personal or political, in my opinion, that her position does not give her the right to embarrass any employee publicly. I feel that this employee is owed a public apology.
20 seconds.
I also want to remind the board that you have access to all employee records, and that we need to be very careful that our employee records are kept confidential. And the last thing I want to say, since I'm running out of time, is Ms. Ivanchek, since you had a lawsuit
Okay.
against this
Ms.
board.
Ms. Osborne, please. That's
I'm sorry.
not the place for that.
Time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Okay. So now we're going to move to our next speaker, and that would be Mr. Jason Harwell.
My name is Jason Harwell. Address is 4277 Armadillo Trail, Niceville, Florida. I'm back, but this time I'm here to say thank you. I was successful at overturning the decision of denial, and I won my appeal. With that being said, I stand before you tonight not only thankful, but grateful. By accepting me into the volunteer program, you are sending a clear message that we can have a chance. I truly believe this is a turning point for our community in regards to how we view others, especially those with past convictions. Like me, there are so many others out there who have made bad choices but have fought against all odds to overcome and move forward in life and live the American dream that was promised by our forefathers. While my acceptance comes with restrictions, I understand. We are treading on certain uncharted waters, and I will respect and uphold the decision. I hope that over time, those restrictions can be lifted, and I'm giving the exact opportunity available to others, but for the meantime, I am grateful. I'm especially grateful for Ms. Kelly and Ms. Ivanchik. Without you two ladies speaking up in the board meetings, I believe the outcome could have been different. I could be wrong, but either way, I want you to know that I think y'all are a blessing to this community, and we are lucky to have you. While growing up in foster care, I would go to a panel review every 6 months, only to find out that my parents haven't done anything in order to get me back. That has a way of making one feel worthless. I wish my parents could see me now. I was worth it. My girls are worth it. This community is worth it. Thank you for this opportunity. Your faith in me is not misplaced. I will not let you down. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So we'll move down to 7, which is, that was workshop-only committee and staff reports. And number 8, consent agenda. We need a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll move we approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hear none, let's vote. The motion carries 5-0. So we'll go all the way down to 9. Superintendent Human Resource recommendations, 9.1 and 9.2 are for information only. So we'll move down to 9.3, substitute employee suspension. Need a motion to approve that.
So moved.
Dr. White makes a motion.
I'll second it.
Second, Mr. Destin, any discussion? Hear none, let's vote. The motion carries 5-0. 9.4, cleared certification requirements and issuance of contracts for the 2019 and 2020 school year. Need a motion to approve.
I'll move.
Dr. Kelly makes a motion,
I'll second it.
and a second by Ms. Ivanchek. Any discussion? Hear none, let's vote. Motion carries 5-0. 9.5 is the out-of-field report for the 2019-2020 school year. Need a motion to approve.
Move we approve.
Mr. Destin makes a motion.
Second.
Second, Dr. White. Any discussion? Hear none, let's vote. Motion carries 5-0. 9.6, employment separations. Need a motion to approve.
I'll move.
Dr. Kelly makes a motion.
I'll second it.
Second, Mr. Vancheck. Any discussion? Hear none, let's vote. Motion carries 5-0. 9.7, personnel recommendations. Need a motion to approve.
So moved.
Mr. Destin makes the motion.
I'll second.
Second, Dr. Kelly. Any discussions? Hear none, let's vote. Motion carries 5-0. 9.8, employee transfers. Need a motion to approve.
I'll move.
Motion by Ms. Ivanchek.
I'll second.
Second, Dr. Kelly. Any discussion? Okay, hear none, let's vote. Motion carries 5-0. Employee suspension. Need a motion to approve.
So moved.
Mr. Destin makes the motion.
Second.
Second, Dr. White. Any discussion? Hear none, let's vote. Motion carries 5-0. 9.10, reinstatement reimbursement of sick leave due to line of duty illness, injury, medical examination. Need a motion to approve.
I'll move.
Dr. Kelly makes the motion.
I'll second it.
Second, Ms. Ivanchek. Any discussion? Hear none, let's vote. Motion carries 5-0. And finally, 9.11, leave without pay. Need a motion to approve.
So moved.
And Mr. Destin makes the motion.
I'll second it.
Second, Ms. Ivanchek. Any discussion? Hear none, let's vote. Motion carries 5-0. Nothing moved from consent on 10, so 11.1. Mr. Destin, that is your area.
Thank you, Chairman. I asked that a copy of this morning's construction program meeting be placed at everybody's seat. And most of these things we've discussed already. We're fixing the roof in Niceville. Our district-wide school upgrade is still underway. For Rosa, we tweaked the parent pickup relocation just a little bit more. Baker School, we're working on their on their kitchen. We're doing a few cleanup tasks at Joe Etheridge Stadium, working on the cafeteria at Pryor Middle School, and we are doing some school quarter construction at Longwood. And we discussed on a new business, fixing a roof at Kenwood. The cafeteria roof is in pretty sad shape, but we think we're figuring out the proper course for that one. So that'll cover it tonight, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Destin. Okay, so we'll move down to 12. We have nothing under information technology seat. And then Mr. McInnes, your business.
No report tonight.
Okay. Mr. Chambers, your business.
All right. I think the only thing that I have tonight, I think on Thursday, we had a little bit of a conversation as it pertained to professional practices and just making sure that the board was aware of what was happening. So one of the things that I did do is I talked to Dr. Hale, made sure that Dr. Hale contacted the Department of Education, and I just wanted Dr. Hale to come up and just share a little bit about that conversation.
Thank you. Good evening. I did speak, well, actually, my office spoke. Ms. Maxey spoke with Ian Dome, who is the Program Director for Professional Practices Services for the DOE. And we did specifically ask the question about notification and forward notification. And specifically, it was strongly discouraged, and the comment was to protect the integrity of the investigations, the fewer people that know, the better. Investigations are considered confidential. Individuals should only know about professional practices on a need-to-know basis, and need to know would not typically include the superintendent or HR or the school board, according to Mr. Dome. Professional practices, investigators don't contact district administrators to notify before arrival. They may potentially contact school administrators to schedule meetings just before their arrival, but that's not a practice and not a guarantee. So our conversation with him was they try to protect the integrity of the investigation at all costs by limiting that type of communication. And so that's why we haven't been notified in the past.
And I just wanted to make sure we had just clarification on that. As you know, we try to make sure that we have good communication with the board, and I absolutely understand the question, and I appreciate the question. I just wanted to make sure that we had the correct answer to get back to you.
And I do appreciate your doing that. Thank
Yes,
you for
ma'am.
making the call. I would just say that from this board member's perspective, and knowing with our recent history in Kenwood, I respect DOE giving guidance to their staff, but you are over your staff, and when you know, I think it's good practice, since we know what happened in the past when we didn't know, that you might reconsider. Just a local consideration.
Well,
I understand and I appreciate it.
Yeah, I just have one comment,
Yes, sir.
Mr.
Go
Chairman.
ahead.
And I know that in your remarks, you indicated a former school board. And the difference was that we wanted to be informed of confirmed investigations in the school district. Now, I don't know about these two that were at question here, but as far as I know, these are not confirmed investigations. And I do remember, Mr. Attorney, that there was some concern about notification of an investigation in terms of perhaps abridging the confidentiality of that investigation. Is that a matter that we have to be concerned about?
Well, as we do with our own personal investigations, by statute, those are confidential till they're concluded. And from my hearing Dr. Hale's presentation, it sounds to me like the Department of Education has taken the same position, that their investigative processes are confidential until they have concluded those.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Mr.
That's all
Chairman?
I have.
Okay. So now we'll move down to school board members' business, and we'll start with Ms. Ivanchek tonight.
Okay, well, first of all, I know everybody's ready for spring break, and just a couple more days, and everybody gets to get out. But I wanted to share something tonight. I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago, and we got rained out for a couple of times. But we get, as board members, get asked to go to do a lot of things. They're a lot of fun. We enjoy those, and I got asked and was honored to come to the very first home Baker Gators ladies softball game, and I was all into listening to the coach till he brought out he hid the main thing in there and said, and throw out the first pitch. But I want you to know that I try to be a team player, pun intended, and I did go Friday night, and here's my ball because all the girls signed it, because it did make it from where I was standing to the catcher's mitt. And that was a big goal for me, so that is that. But I appreciate those ladies, and Coach Carlisle up there could not have been more gracious in having me there, and I appreciate that, and I wish them a lot of luck on their season, so thank you.
And just so you know, Ms. Vancheck, I happened to be out there last week, and they actually had the scoreboard on, so.
Yes.
And I know you were instrumental in helping get that, so it looked really good out there.
The scoreboard does look excellent. I
Yes,
appreciate that,
yes.
yeah.
And Dr. Kelly?
Just saying that I'm appreciative of 3 days until spring break, and maybe warm weather will hit us and help maybe with the COVID-19 spread situation. That's all I have.
Dr. White?
Well, just to follow up on what I said Thursday about when Connie and I visited Meigs Middle School, it was late in the day, and the principal and her staff and the faculty were still there, still working, as you might expect. And just wanted to thank her, Principal Lamb, and her staff for being so gracious and taking us and letting us visit some of the enhanced security protocols and construction that's occurring there at that school. And board members, if you have a chance, you may want to stop by there and take a look at it, because actually it's quite impressive. And appreciate all the work, Mr. Destin, to you and the superintendent and his staff have done to make that happen. It's a big difference and a big change for that school, let me assure you. But that's all. Thank you.
Right.
And you might have some personal experience.
A little different, huh?
Yeah.
Well, considering most people don't realize that used to be Choctaw High
That's
School.
right.
Yeah, so.
Yep.
All right, Mr. Destin.
Chairman, thank you. I feel compelled tonight to answer the question I've been getting from quite a few people about whether I plan to run for re-election. After a great deal of contemplation and due to family and business obligations, I will not be running. I don't think it would be fair not to make that announcement, so if there are some people that would like to sign up, that they can go ahead, and I look forward to seeing new leadership, and I know the board will educate them and treat them well. And let's see, I still have 7.5 months to, along with the board and the superintendent, to address some issues that were important to me, but I thought I should make that in all fairness, I should make that announcement tonight.
So, Mr. Chairman, do we get to vote on that?
Well, but come back to me here, but I'm going to yield it back because I know this is a big surprise to everybody. So I'm going to start with Ms. Vancheck if you have anything that you would like to say to Mr. Destin. And then we'll just.
I disagree.
Thank
I
you,
think we
Ms.
should be able to debate on that, so, but I of course, respect your personal wishes, and I'm glad that we have a few more months to work together, because you certainly do a lot of things for this board and for the people here, so I'm glad that we have some time and can work with you, and so it's a pleasure
Well, I
always.
think we have 7 months, so don't fire me too early.
No, several months, yes. Thank you.
Well, I'll just say publicly what I said one time in a different conversation to you, and I've said this to other people before. Many times people run for office, and truly you don't know what it means until you have put your name on a ballot and you go through that year-long, sometimes longer, process. That is quite a feat. But you truly don't know a person's qualifications if you just read the slick brochure or you hear their slick comments in public. What you really need to know about a person is their personal interactions and the integrity that they show you, whether or not they live up to what they said while they were campaigning, and how they treat you individually in a professional manner. And I will say that Mr. Destin was my board member when I was a principal at Destin Middle School, and we had a situation that doesn't bear to go into details, but it was a trying situation, and after trying to resolve the situation a number of ways, Mr. Destin came over, and I want you to know, with just a phone call, he was able to resolve the situation that we had tried on our own for weeks, standing up for what he said he would do when he ran, following up personally and professionally, and handling the matter in such a fine way made an indelible mark on my memory with Mr. Destin, and I will never forget that.
Thank you.
Well, that's a tough one, and I was hoping for a different kind of announcement tonight.
Me too.
But I understand, and what many of you folks may know is that Mr. Destin and I were high school classmates. And it's been a pleasure to have you on the board, and have so much appreciated your insight, particularly your business insight, plus your previous experience as a member of a city council in Destin for so many years. And we went through some trying times together, and I very much appreciated your integrity and your direct manner of handling all those kinds of things that we had to attend to, Mr. Destin. And I respect your decision, and I understand it. And maybe we can do some kind of callback periodically, maybe even in public comment when it's appropriate. But again, thank you for your service.
And I'm going to let Mr. Chambers that.
I appreciate it. And I will say, Mr. Destin, all my interactions with you, you are the consummate professional. You are someone who listens, and you're also someone who's not afraid to take a stand. And a lot of times that stand is for employees, it's for kids, and you've been a board member that's truly been a rock up here. And I appreciate the fact that each time that I've called you, we've had good conversations, and you've given good advice as well, which I appreciate. But this is a little bit of a shocker for me, but you are someone who will be missed, not for 7 months, but someone who will be missed at the time. But you've done a great job, and I appreciate you.
Well, thank you for those kind comments. You all have been very nice, and I've enjoyed the time. And I'm not gone yet, so we have some time yet.
Well, and of course, now it's my comments, and I would just like to say thank you, Mr. Destin. One, just for your leadership. Two, for me, being fairly new on the board and not truly understanding all the processes at the beginning. You are like our Robert's Rules of Order go-to guys. So, but for me, I know I've appreciated everything that you stood for. And like Mr. Chambers said, you're not afraid to take a stand on things that, sometimes they're hard to take a stand on. And, but I appreciate your mentorship. And, you're right, we still have seven months to go, and you still have a lot to do in that 7 months. But I know I truly appreciate all that you've done to serve not only the school board, but the entire Okaloosa County community. So.
Thank you.
All right. And so with that being said, we'll go down to public comment. I just do want to make sure everybody remembers when we do public comment, please address me. And also if there's any, employees or even board members, please keep that respectful and address the chair. So with that being said, we do have a second section of public comment, and Mr. McInnes, if you would just go over the rules for that.
Yes, in this section, you'll have 2 minutes to make your presentation.
Okay. So with that being said, is there anybody here that would like to speak in section 16.1? Okay. Hearing none, we'll move down to adjournment. This meeting's adjourned.